Hello, everybody. My name is Stacy Briscoe. I am the senior editor of Wine Enthusiast, but today I am coming to you as a WSET Level 3 online instructor for the Napa Valley Wine Academy. And I am joined today by a few recently successful Level 3 students. And we're going to talk about some struggles, some successes, some tips and tricks that got them across the finish line. So what I would love to do, first of all, is kind of go around the table, say your name, where you're from, and your motivation for taking level 3, whether it's because you're in the industry or it was just a hobby that, took off into Never Never Land. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your wine journey. We'll start with Bill because he's right there where I can see him.
I'm ready. Hi, my name is Bill Lee. I'm a resident of South Florida. I'm outside of Fort Lauderdale. I got into the program because at one point, I'm retired and I had a part-time, I applied for a part-time job at a major retailer, which turned into a full-time job. But it was a wine and spirits retailer, and I thought I knew enough about wine when I was there, but then I found out I didn't. And so that got me involved in learning new programs. And so I did level two through Napa, and then I did level three just recently. And I got my pin on somewhere here, somewhere. Oh, wrong finger. But so I was. It was fun to do, and it was hard. It was more challenging. If you've taken level two, we'll talk about it. But if you've taken level two, the difference between level two and level three is night and day.
Awesome. Let's go over to Mike because he's next in my line of sight.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm another Florida guy, but I'm up in the Northwest. I'm in Panama City Beach, and and I got involved with it because wine's been a hobby for years. I collect wine. We travel quite a bit, and I always try to try the wine wherever we go, and learn more about it. So this was just personal interest for me to be involved.
All right, cool. And Hannah, how about you?
Hi, I'm so happy to be in this winner's circle. Can I get a round of applause here? I am from Atlanta, Georgia, and I got into level 3 because I'm a food and wine writer, and I wanted to be able to talk to the people that I interview and talk to and do stories about in an intelligent way, and come from an angle of, good education and knowing what in the world you're even writing about and talking about. So yeah, that was my motivation.
Girl after my own heart.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Jeremy.
Yes, hi, I'm Jeremy Craig, representing the West Coast, apparently. I live in Northern California, just outside of Napa. And so been a collector for years, actually working in consumer product goods, doing omni-channel distribution. So it was a natural fit with my industry to learn more and get more certifications. So I was able to do that through the online class. And again, I think along with everyone else here, was able to pass. And thanks to the help of Stacy and a weekend with Jess, passed with distinction. So super excited.
Ooh, wear that, wear that.
Yeah.
Cool. So, the first thing I want to ask, so, for anybody that's watching, we're talking about level 3, but we are kind of specifically talking about the level 3 online program. And obviously, for Bill, Mike, and Hannah who live out of state, this may be something that's a little bit more convenient for them, so they don't have to, travel and they can study from home. But I'm curious, perhaps, Jeremy, you could let us know, being a local, why did you opt for an online program versus an in-person program? What were some of the benefits that you saw doing that?
Sure. Actually, the online was really the only way I was able to do it because I travel for work. So there's no guarantee to be able to make all the dates in person. So the online gave me that flexibility I needed with work and the occasional kids game that I needed to be at to be able to work around my schedule a little bit on that end. So that flexibility was huge in really helping and being able to do it and still be working full time.
And maybe Hannah or Mike or Bill, you can speak to how did the online resources that were in the classroom help you? Did you find those tools useful, or did you use them?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it took me a little while to get used to it. But once you
Yeah.
get used to it and how to look up different subjects and how they're categorized and the maps and all that kind of stuff really came in handy. I mean, I didn't really have a study group or a study. It was more myself, and this really helped me a lot because even today, sometimes somebody will ask me about South Africa, and I'm picturing Australia. So it just helped. It helped straighten all that out.
100%. I know when I took my level 3 and my diploma, I lived and breathed by maps, because if I couldn't picture where it was, I couldn't remember anything about it. I'm so glad you found those useful, because I know my team's been working really hard to keep those fresh and updated and beautiful and easy to use. What about Mike?
Yeah, sorry, I just had a heap of issues. Let me do that now.
Oh. Okay. How about you, Mike or Hannah? Were there any fun tools or toys that you found inside the online program that you found to be beneficial for your studies?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I lived and breathed all the online tools. I took my iPad to restaurants. I would order something and immediately, okay, my favorite handy dandy tool online were the flashcards. I
Yeah.
loved getting them right. There were hundreds of them. So you just felt like a champ every time you would go through a set. And my husband and I go on a lot of hikes and walks. So I would bring my iPad with me. This iPad was stuck with me for months, and he would just quiz me and go through the flashcards, and it was really easy to navigate that, and that was a really useful tool for me.
Awesome. What about you, Mike?
Oh, the online content was extraordinary, but it was beneficial that it was always accessible. And so you could go back and you can listen to the same lecture over and over. You didn't have to necessarily rely on your notes to be accurate, because you could listen to it multiple times, and the flashcards and the maps. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point that you bring up. We have, during the 10-week course, 5 set scheduled live webinars, but they are always recorded. So it's not just for, if you can't make it, you have to go to your kid's soccer game, whatever. They're really helpful to, like you said, listen to or watch again if you didn't hear it the first time, or maybe you need to take a screenshot of one of the slides. So I know that was something that I did when I was studying as well, was constantly just even plug in the iPad to my car stereo and just like listen to lectures while I drove, just hear it on repeat. So that's a really good point there. So I think it was Jeremy who was talking. I'm going to dive into this big question a little bit about, the leap from level 2 to level 3. So why you started that conversation? Why don't you take us into how you felt that leap was?
Sure. So from my standpoint, I actually enjoyed level 3. I think level 3 builds upon level 2 really well, but so much more demonstrating that knowledge, much more applicable. It's less regurgitating the facts and figures, but really understanding the development of those things. And I know even on the exam side, that's really what they were testing in the theory section. It's really not so much knowing the steps, but understanding the steps. So if they throw you a question related to it, you can think through the process of why would someone do that? What's the benefit? What's the negative? How can I address that? And it really begins to build a broader knowledge base of those options. There's so many options a winemaker makes just in the process of making wine, that developing a deep understanding of the whys and hows behind it, more so than the facts, I think really built. But that's the big difference. It's an application of knowledge, not so much the memorization of it.
No, that's great. It's not at this level. It's not just memorizing. facts. Those flashcards are great for memorizing facts, but it's more about do you understand how those facts relate? What goes on in the vineyard, what goes on in the winery, and how that affects the resulting wine in the glass, what goes to market into the consumer's hands. That's a really great point. Anybody else want to jump in about how they experienced their change from 2 to 3?
I'd like to. My level 2 experience wasn't very good, to be honest with you. I had a background, and so it was kind of like I knew what was going on, and I wasn't really going deep enough for us. And we were pretty much left on our own. Nobody even talked to us. We did one tasting at the very beginning. I think it was the second day of class, and that was it. That was the last I heard. And our instructor said, "If you need anything, call us." 3. I went in with that kind of mentality, thinking it was going to be like that, but I had a great instructor, and it wasn't like that at all. and the wine tasting, with the wine kit and the wine tasting, that helps you just you not only learn how to taste, but you learn how to communicate that taste. And I don't know if you remember, but you and I had a couple of conversations.
That's a great point. I think
I was getting close, but I wasn't getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a really great point. You do a lot of tasting in level 2, but it's a little superficial. It's kind of on a linear level, right? When you're in level 3, again, to kind of go back to Jeremy's point, you're bringing in all of those things that you learned about the viticulture and the winemaking and why does it taste this way. The other great thing, about this 10-week course too, when I did my level 3, I actually did it all in one go. It was a 1-week program, but I'm finding that, with my students that are extending it to this 10-week program, that gives them a chance to turn in their tasting notes. Everybody gets homework assignments that they don't have to, but they can turn in. And the folks that do get to have that conversation with the instructor, whether it's me or Jess, about their tasting skills. Are they making those connections? And so it's not just, us creating the homework, it's you guys saying, hey, I missed this. What am I missing? And that's how you become a stronger taster, right? It's not just taking the tasting notes, but it's getting that feedback and then putting that feedback on board every time you taste. What about Henna or Mike? Do you guys want to talk about your level 2 versus level 3 experience?
Sure. Yeah. I think with the level 3, the biggest change that happened is that you dive into the why and how. So it's like if something is very fruit forward, let's say, it's got a lot of strawberry, a lot of red fruits. To figure out why it's jammy, immediately your brain goes to, okay, warm climate. It's probably not at like a super high elevation. This is why it's chewy. This is why it's jammy. But you get the right verbiage and the right way to describe something and also figure out why it's that way. And who doesn't want to understand that? I mean, that's pretty cool, I think. It's like, it's when you order something off of a wine list to interviewing a fantastic producer who's using biodynamic techniques to be able to put the puzzle pieces together in your brain. It's like, okay, I'm in flatland Spain. It's like 100 degrees. What am I going to expect? Not a floral, delicate wine here. So I think having that connect and make sense in my brain is the biggest step from level 2 to level 3.
Cool. And Mike, you have anything to add?
Well, yeah, I think Jeremy and Henna hit it the nail right on the head. It's about the how and the why and the what and putting it all together, but also being able to explain it and understand it. And so, like Henna said, you go into a restaurant, you look at a wine list, and you might see 2 or 3 Pinot Grigios. You might see some from Veneto and Alto Adige. You might see some Alsace. And you can look at them, you can pretty much get an idea, okay, this is the one, this is what's going to taste like in this area, and this is what's going to taste like in this area, and which one do I want to have today? So it's quite an accomplishment. And so it is much, it says level 2 to level 3, but the difference is much greater than just one level.
Yeah, That's a great point. And it's always fun to think about these like practical applications. Like, Hannah mentioned, she's a lot better at, interviewing and communicating her articles to her audience. Mike mentioned going to restaurants and successfully ordering some wine, but these are also the things that you
Uh-oh.
Have we lost Stacy?
I think so.
Okay.
I believe she froze up there for a second. Let's see.
this wine that
There she is.
or what went on in the vineyard in the cellar that makes it that I'm experiencing this, and this is the wine that I'm going to order. So branching off of that, exam prep, I would love for each of you to go around and say, perhaps, if there's maybe something, let's start with theory, because we did talk a lot about tasting already. When it comes to that theory and making those connections, do you have any study tips or tricks or things that worked for you? I know we're all different learners, so it'd be great to hear from each of you if there's something that really helps those light bulbs go off.
I think for me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but for me, the workbook that accompanies your regular lesson book is great. I mean, it asks questions, and you got to so we talk along. You got to learn how to answer a question, especially when you're given an extended answer when you're doing. There's ways of doing it right and ways of doing it wrong, but it also, what I did was, and she was talking about the flashcards. I took all the flashcards. I went through them with my wife, and she asked me all the questions. Then I went back and took the flashcards, and I researched each. I never didn't turn it over. I just researched each and every question. So it broadened the whole entire area when you're doing that. You just start to expand your knowledge base on doing things like that. As for me, anyway.
I think Bill's right. You got to practice the short written answer questions, and you either you got to read the book to see how they want it answered. You can go online. There's a lot of information out there on portals like YouTube, where people in the WSET programs will give you information and show you how to answer certain short answers. But practice. You have to practice it over and over.
I apologize. I clearly lost connection there. So if I ask a question, just technical issues. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
continue.
And I think I would add, my challenge in short written answer is I wanted to be very verbose and write everything down. So learning the strategy of what exactly is the WSET asking for, as opposed to the whole written history of Bordeaux. What are they specifically asking about blending of Bordeaux grapes and why? So practicing being succinct, because I know that, in my exam I took in April, there were some people around me that didn't finish the theory part because that time goes really quickly when you're trying to go through all of those questions. So I think being succinct, and one thing that helped me with that is I did a lot of process flow charting, like the making of red wine, and so that kind of helped me think in those terms. So when I was confronted with the question, I tried to first do an outline quickly of, what are they asking? What are the basics here? Is this an explain or describe? And by using those techniques to really be succinct in my responses to make sure I'm getting all the points that are available, and I'm not wasting time, adding information that wasn't relevant to the question.
That's perfect. And that's something that we always talk about during our 10-week course, right? Like all of the homework assignments and even the self-study tools that are in the online portal. The big thing is just honing in on what is it that the question is asking me. Because to your point, Jeremy, you could memorize everything there is about Bordeaux, but if they're asking you about viticulture and you go into the cellar and start talking about winemaking, you're not going to get any points, right? So it's about really figuring that out. And I'm so happy to hear that you were making like brief little outlines and bullet points for yourself. Because on day of exam, it gets so nerve-wracking to think, oh, I've only got the 2 hours. I've got to just write my answers. But that piece of scratch paper could be your saving grace. If you, like you said, quick flow chart, quick list of key terms you want to mention, go back to that and make sure you don't miss some easy points by using like a key term or, a specific, technique that you need to mention. Hannah, did you already give yours? I'm sorry. Like I said, I froze for a little bit.
Oh, no, it's totally fine. I agree with all of those strategies. Used each and every one of them. That scratch paper, I outlined everything. Like it's topic sentences is how I think of it, essay wise, right? It's what are the key points I'm trying to hit? Retention of acidity because of cooler temps, where it is on the equator. So just bullets, and then you transfer it over with full sentences on your actual exam. And the other trick I kind of used was talk your family's ears off. Explain a concept to them. Can you talk about, where something sits away from an equator and do it correctly? But if they understand it, that means you understood it. And you understand the concept so well that you can briefly describe it to someone else. Using your voice and using your true hand to write things down. Listen, we've been typing forever now, but actually picking up a pen and writing to paper is so important, especially when you're practicing. It is something that I learned because I was cramping on exam day. Like once I walked out of there, I was like, dang, I haven't written with a pencil in forever. So
100%. I always say it's a physical endurance as well as mental endurance when you're in that exam. So yeah, I always encourage my students practice under time conditions, under the conditions that you plan to be writing out those answers. So if it's with a pencil, practice with a pencil, practice with the same eraser and sharpener that you plan to bring with you, under those time conditions, because yeah, I mean, if it's not your wrist, it's going to be the little pointy parts of your fingers, and you don't want that to distract you, right? So that's definitely a really, really great tip. And being able to communicate, right, every little thing and be clear and concise. Sorry, someone had another comment. I interrupted.
Well, no, Stacy, I was just going to add on what Jeremy said about how you get there in the process of the winemaking. And for me, I was so eager to jump into the grape varietals and the regions and so forth. I found myself going back to the processes, the winemaking and the red winemaking, white winemaking, so forth, over and over. And I think if you study that up front and really get a strong foundation, when you go into every country, you already know how they achieve these types of wine styles. And then that will save you that effort having to go back each time.
100%. Yeah.
And I think Hannah's right. If I was like Bill, I was on my own, Bill was on his own, but you really want to find a group that you can talk to about this. It doesn't have to be a study group, but if it's any group, it helps.
I agree.
Oh yeah. Agree hardcore. Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Mike said, because for the level 3, the book starts out with 2 major sections all about viticulture and all about winemaking. And those are the foundations for the rest of the book. Yeah, we all want to travel to Italy and learn about Italian wine, and we all want to go to Australia and learn about Australian wine. But if they say that this wine went under extended maceration for, X amount of days at this temperature, and that means nothing to you, it's not going to help you make that connection that we've been talking about. So learning those core techniques up front. I always say keep a sticky tab on those chapters. So if a key term comes up that you don't know about, go ahead, flip back, reread about it. That's the most important thing, because like we've been saying this whole conversation, it's all about making the connection at this level and explaining why and how to someone. In this case, it would be the examiner, but just like Hannah and Mike both said, practicing explaining to people who maybe aren't into wine and say, hey, like, can I just teach you really quickly about something that I learned? And if they can pick it up, you're probably in a good place to be able to explain it on an exam. I did the same thing with my family. They didn't mind because, you know, they didn't know. So it was new and interesting for them. So they were like, okay, cool. Like,
Yeah.
I'll believe you. So definitely, you know, talk your friends' ears off. I like Henna's bring your iPad to the restaurant and order a wine and just be like, okay, like what am I drinking now? Make it fun, make it interactive. And you know, if you're not having fun, it's going to be a lot harder. So it's always easier when we kind of put some joy in what we're doing, right? So I know we talked a little bit about tasting, and that, you know, I think for a lot of folks who are thinking about going into level 3 is the scary part, because it's not something that we were tested on in any of the lower levels. So I'd be curious to hear, you know, how did you guys attack that? Was it as scary as it seemed? I mean, you guys all passed your exams, so clearly you did something right.
Well, the tasting's the easy part. That's the fun part. I mean, you just sit around and you taste. But my advice to anybody that's going to do this is get yourself one of the saving devices so that wines will last more than about 4 or 5 days in the refrigerator. Taste as many as you can. Taste those that are in the course. Taste a lot that are not in the course. And one idea is if you're struggling trying to identify certain flavors with one wine or a group of wines, put 4 similar wines out there in front of you, 4 similar white wines, 4 similar red wines, thin skin grape, thick skin grape, whatever you want to do, and learn by differentiating between those 4 or 5 that you have in front of you. You'll learn a lot that way. You really will. And the aromas that are different from one wine to the other, from one varietal, will really come out. Those differences will really come out.
I know that when we did the exam, we did the tasting first. I guess there was about 12 or 15 people in the room. I had to go to Tampa to take the test. And then we sat down outside when we were finished and we started talking, and a group of us were deciding on what the wine was. They wouldn't tell us. They never told us, and I still don't know. But it was fun because it was like you see what other people are seeing, and you may have missed, or you saw something that they missed, and it was a great. It gives you that ability. During the course, we did 20 some odd wines, I guess it was in the wine kit, and I did like 3 times more wines than that. I did, yeah. I always taste 2 or 3 a night. And my wife is one, and it's just her and I. My wife is a person that her thought about wine is, oh, it's red or it's white. That's pretty much all she cares about. But it was fun getting her involved in it too. And the tasting thing it just made this so much better. I mean, it was just incredibly. The information was, I agreed, a lot more detailed and got down to the hows and the whys. But the tasting thing gets you really physically involved.
That's a great way to put it. I like that.
I think the key learning for tasting was calibration. Shout out to my instructor, Jess, and she did such an incredible job working with your notes on the tastings, and even suggested, I remember I rated a lower quality wine a little bit higher than it really was, and it was a simple wine, right? And I was looking for so many things that just simply didn't exist in the wine. So she recommended go get an $8 bottle of whatever from Publix or from the grocery store, and then compare it to a Grand Cru from Bordeaux, and you'll just start to see those differences. And that's honestly, tasting is like truly the best part, in my opinion. So calibration was key. And then the other thing I learned was mint destroys your palate. So taste a wine after brushing your teeth, write out the notes, and then do it again the next day without having brushed your teeth like right then. And you will not believe how horrible that is. Could you imagine brushing your teeth right before your exam? Because your exam's at 9 a.m. don't brush your teeth before you go take the exam. A high acid white wine needs to be your mouthwash for the morning, just to calibrate your palate, get the acidity going. That should be on posters for WSET. Don't brush your teeth before the exam.
Yeah,
You're
I
right.
always
You're
say,
absolutely right.
Seriously,
don't
you
brush,
would feel it immediately.
don't have anything too aromatic that's going to stick in the back of your throat for breakfast either. So like plain everything. If you're going to have coffee, have it like several hours before so it's not in the back of your breath too. That's funny, but it's true. Um, So just for the folks who are watching, who are coming from level 2, the thing about the tasting exam that a lot of folks don't realize is you're not asked to identify what the wine is, not the grape, not the region, not even the style of winemaking, nothing. You really are just graded on your assessment. So the structural components, whether it's, the acid, the tannin, sugar, if it's a sweet wine, alcohol, body, and then your aromas and flavors that you pick up. And then, of course, at the end, you have your conclusions, quality, and is it ageable or not. So I just want to lay that out on the table for anybody who might be watching and thinking like, oh my God, the tasting is going to be scary because I have to like name a wine. Not the case here at all. Cool.
Stacy, one of the things I did is I created my own tasting, my own aroma kit beyond what we had. And so
There you go.
I was drinking, as we went through the tastings, I'd find that I was struggling to identify certain aromas. They just weren't popping out. Some you're going to be very strong with, some you're going to be weak. It's individualized. But I would go to the grocery store and I'd either get the preservative, or I'd go get the herb of the weaknesses, and I'd make my own kit. And you can do that for not a lot of money, and also it's tailored to what you need.
And when you're done, you have a really big spice cabinet. So added benefit. Mike, you also had an interesting kind of thing that you did when you were tasting on your own, maybe sourced a couple of wines that were because the WSET will give you the list of your recommended wines, but maybe they're not the ones that the Academy gave you, and you kind of figured out a way to calibrate kind of on your own. Did you want to talk about that too?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of, like Henna said, it's about calibration. You can try multiple wines. You look at the ones that are recommended, and maybe you buy one or two others, and you'll get an idea of what's high acidic, what is medium plus, what is low. So, is that what you're alluding to?
Yeah, yeah, no, and you're talking about like finding like winemaker tech sheets too, to kind of, instead of having like an answer key, because we'll give answer keys from the Academy, but you were looking up, kind of like winemaker tech sheets and things like that to compare to see, if you were on.
Oh yeah,
like,
I do that all the time. And you can do that. You can join Wine Enthusiasts for free, and you can go on and you can look at their wine reviews. And the wine reviews from Wine Enthusiasts are the ones I found closest to the WSET program. Versus Parker and his advocate and Suckling and some other people. So I would try to look at their reviews, but if you can't get access to them, you can get access on wine.com and some of the other wine places, and you'll see some of the Wine Enthusiast reviews and some of the winemaker notes, and that's sort of your answer key. And it's usually, if you can, try to get at least 2 reviews, because again, this is subjective to some degree.
Another thing you can do, and I did this a lot, was on the wines that I was tasting outside of our program, is you can go onto the website for whoever the winemaker is, or who's ever producing a chemist or anybody, and they'll more than likely have a sell sheet. And on the sell sheet, it'll have the winemaker's notes and the wine tasting notes, and so you can see what they did, and that'll help you, especially when you're going through the viniculture, where you're talking about how the wine is made. When you go through the winemaker notes, it tells you and you're spot on. You really start to catch on with it.
Cool. So I'm kind of looking at my questions here, and we've kind of moved on to everything. I'm curious, just in general, given your experience, again, we can just go around the room. We're talking to folks who are interested in level 3. Maybe they're on the fence. Does anybody want to say, kind of give their case for level 3 and a little bit of motivation to all the folks out there thinking about continuing their wine education?
Yeah, I think it's such a personal journey. It's kind of like going back to school, right? It's like going back for your master's or something like that. But it's so fulfilling. It's like this is something that I did. I've suddenly had time to do it. And now that it's over, it's like I can't believe it's actually done. I'm gonna get to wear that sweet pin on my blazer and speak intelligently about this. Ooh, and you get a sweet email signature JPEG that they sent you that you can like say you're WSET level 3. I mean, it's really great. You're learning so much every day, but you're challenged to get it right. And if you like a challenge, and if you like, attaining that moment of, okay, you know what? Not only did I learn, but I friggin' nailed it. Like I did it. I got the exam, and I finished it. I actually learned something new. I thought it was absolutely worth it.
Well, I think I would second that.
Did we get locked up?
I think Jeremy was starting.
Oh, did it skip again? Apologies. Go ahead, Bill. I see you on my screen.
Yeah. The idea about level 3 is, don't look at it as a step to dip. I mean, I've got to do this just to get to dip. Learn during level 3, and that will take you to dip automatically. I mean, I am, for me as a retired guy, do I need to go to dip? I'm reading a book right now by Jamie Good, who, about the science of wine, and I've got another book on viticultural. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm preparing myself for what I don't know. I haven't made my decision yet, but it not only it set a fire off in me, and I just loved it.
Awesome. Yeah, that was actually another question that came through from the audience here. Is anybody else toying with the idea with maybe possibly applying for, if you haven't already, going into the diploma program?
Oh God, it's the only question anyone will ask me anymore. That dreaded question of diploma. Maybe that's the best I can go. Because, oh my God, level 3, it took months of studying and you finally made it. I think I'm going to bathe in the sweet victory for just a little bit longer.
For sure.
The thing about
Hannah, one thing you got to realize is the WSET program is international. And when my wife and I travel, we travel with friends, we go to wine dinners, we're on cruises. The sommeliers in these places, they're all WSET trained. Some are level, and most of them, the vast majority of them are WSET level 3. Now, they're very good level 3 individuals, and usually, like the head guy might be a level 4. But there's so many opportunities available with the WSET program, and you can move into industry, you can move into sales, you can work with distributors, you can work with wineries, you can work in the entertainment industry. I've been going also the same time I've been doing the sommelier program, which is basically a U.S. based program, but it's really basically wine tasting, and your role is to work. You're either going to work maybe with a winemaker if you're fortunate, or you're going to work in a restaurant, or you're just going to do it for fun. but it doesn't give you the logistics and the understanding of the wine industry around the world if you're going to enter the wine industry. That's just my opinion on it.
Mm.
If I may bring up something, while I was waiting for my certification, I went and did a program with the Society of Wine Educators as a certified specialist of wine. Their program is different, but a lot of the information is the same. But I didn't get the sense of accomplishment that I got for doing level 3. They do some things differently. But the one thing I like about level 3 or level 2 or whatever is if you sign up now, you get that year of membership and I referred to that so many times when I was doing some other program. I referred to my membership over here, and it really helped out a lot. And I just can't tell you how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think, we have a good group here, some folks in the industry, some folks doing this, for pleasure. And it doesn't really matter what your motivation is. It's good information. It's good learning. And if you're curious and excited about wine, yeah, you're going to keep your textbook and, flip it open and maybe take a sneaky peek when somebody asks you, a hardcore question that you maybe don't really remember. We all do it. But I think at least for me, as an instructor, that's one of the things that I constantly try to impress upon people is that if it's something that you are joyous to partake in, if it is something that is fun and pleasing for you, then you're going to get that satisfaction out of it. It's hard, but anything worth doing is usually pretty hard, right? So we go in it with a good spirit and then we come out with a shiny pin and there you go.
Somewhere here, there we go.
Awesome. I'm going to check with my colleagues online. Were there any other questions? Let's see. Oh, okay, here's a good one. We talked a little bit about the difference between level 2 and level 3, but can anybody actually quantify that in their mind? Like, how much more time did you really spend on your studies for level 3? Was it a significant hour change in dedication?
It's a jump. It's definitely, and I think what it is because there's so much principle involved of you got to go beyond just the fact. It's not as simple as just going through flashcards. It's really reinnovating. For example, I had colored pencils. I relied on maps a lot because I'm kind of a visual learner. So when we went through sections, I was doing maps. I was doing flow charting. So yeah, it was probably, the book says 120 hours. I think that's
it says 84 hours, but that's minimum 84 hours. Yeah.
Correct. And it's beyond that if you want to do well. But on the other hand, I love to learn, and it was a lot of fun digging into and start putting 2 and 2 together. And even now with, some wines I love, I now have a better understanding of why I love them and the style and the mark. So it helps me look at going, okay, I like this style because of this winemaking technique. So that means I'll probably like this style also in this different country. I need to try that. So, there's a lot of that goes into it now. So for example, my Rotary Club, after I received the certificate, I rang the bell and kind of celebrated it with them, and immediately we scheduled a wine tasting. They wanted to do a patio wine, so we did a wine tasting. So we sat down, and it was fun to kind of put it to use and share some of that knowledge. And here in Northern California right now, we have beautiful patio weather. It cools down in the evening, so we did wine tasting called Patio Pleasers, and just went through and poured Tavel and Australian Riesling and some chilled Zinfandel. A little secret I learned working in Napa. Chilled Zinfandel and barbecue is the king of summer here. So it was great to put that to use right now in a way, just with friends, but also knowing that you have that knowledge to carry forward in industry also.
I couldn't agree more.
Another question we had is, so y'all took the 10-week course. How much time did you give yourself between the end of your 10 weeks and your exam? Because we don't typically recommend people just like take the 10-week course and then jump into an exam. So what kind of cushion did you give yourself to maybe review, utilize some of those online tools, practice on your own a little bit?
Well, we ended in February, I believe, or maybe it was early March or so. And I took my test later on in March. I mean, I was weeks away. For me, let me be honest with you guys. I'm ADHD, so my retention sometimes isn't the best, and so I wanted to get it over with quick. But I liked it so much that it stayed. I mean, it was good. I can still sit here and we can all of us have a conversation about a bottle of wine, which brings people together. Be honest, and but I could see taking some more time. I mean, what is it, a year? I think you get a year after the end of your class. I could see people waiting and studying and taking their time with it. I don't see anything wrong in that. That's awesome.
What about Hannah?
Stacy, I took it at 2 months. I took it at 2 months after the course, and I wish I had 3.
Okay.
3 would have been the sweet spot for me.
Okay, so what do you wish you had done for that extra month that you wish you had given yourself?
I would have focused more on the short written answers, more and more, and
I agree
going
with
back
you.
to how going to the wine processing and linking that to all the short written answers about why this wine tastes the way it does versus a wine somewhere else. I give you I spent a lot of time trying to memorize what wines had what flavors and what regions and different grapes with the same grape as it went from different regions. And I found that a little bit too overwhelming, and I should have just focused more on the wine processing. And I think that would have solved a lot of the time issues there.
I ended in February. Yeah, so I ended in February. Took it the last week of April. But I took exam labs the weekend before the exam.
Oh, great.
Which was really good to kind of get some real practice in with short written answer, some example problems, do some last minute calibration of tasting. Really kind of gave me some confidence going to the exam. So that was timed really well. I think the exam labs really helped going in.
Awesome. So for folks that maybe don't know, we do offer a 2-day kind of intensive workshop for students who have done their level 3 course but haven't yet done the exam, to help exactly with what Jeremy just said, kind of hone in on some of those short written answer questions, how to answer them, how to prepare your little outlines and get those answers in time conditions, and then also some tasting as well to make sure that you're calibrated with a WSET instructor. So that's always another kind of, after you finish your 10-week course, but before you take your exam, like, what do I do? I know I took it for my my level 3, and it kind of changed my whole perspective on how to answer those short written answer questions. So I obviously highly recommend it. Was there anything, Bill, that you kind of wish that you had done in prep for your exam that maybe you didn't, now that you're looking back?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Mike on this deal, because I think I would have devoted a little more time to the short written answer, because I think that, as far as the communication part of the thing, is the hardest to master, is the short answer. Because you want to focus on the certain steps, and where are you answering it properly, or are you just leaving it in an area? I mean, you and I had been through it a couple of times, and you were sending me back my homework and saying, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And then I'd stop and look, and I'd say, "Hey, you're right." Well, yeah, and so it was great. Let me tell you, I was so thankful that you did that. So I wish I agree. I think I passed with merit, but I would have rather been a little more distinctive and been a little higher. And I think that probably would have been my short written answers.
Well, we practice for progress, not perfection. So just gives you something
Exactly.
continue as you continue on your wine journey. Hannah, was there anything that you kind of maybe looking back say, oh, I wish I had known, or I wish I could have, woulda?
So my big strategy between finishing the 10 weeks and taking the exam, which I did in about 3-ish months, I think, was all of the questions, especially the short written ones and the multiple choice, all of them come from that one book. So
Yeah.
trying to really stamp that book into your brain, of course, understanding the concepts too, but getting into that book, I was reading that book like as though I needed to finish it like a novel. I read the whole textbook from front to back 3 times, 3 whole times, every single word. So the first time was understanding it's broken apart and all of those things. Second, and then a third time to make sure that I was retaining all this information. For me, reading was more of a leisurely thing. So really getting through that textbook over and over again was the key, because everything in the exam was going to come from that. Short written answers, I mean, I agree with everybody else, is the bane of all of it. Perfecting communication and getting your ideas across in a very concise way is what they want you to do. Identify, describe, and explain. 3 entirely different ways you can answer that question. So yeah, handwriting too. I mean, I know I said that before too, but really picking up that pen, not just answering it in your head, because I know I was doing that a lot. It was like, oh yeah, I got it. It's like a process of champagne. Oh, yeah, who doesn't know that? But no, putting it down to paper, seeing how much time it takes, and a lot of times you'll be surprised that you missed a couple things.
Sure. Yeah, and I think too, and again, this is something that we always go over in class or in the 2-week intensive kind of boot camp prep, exam prep, is learning what those questions are asking you, and also realizing the WSET gives you what the points are worth for each, right? So if it says identify a grape, like, and it's worth up 1 point, write down the grape and then move on to that 20-point question that's asking you to explain the terroir of Bordeaux in great detail, So those are, again, the kind of things that we teach you in class, but it's also things that you need to practice, like you said, under time conditions with the utensil that you plan to use. Awesome. I'm looking to see if there's any other questions that we have from the audience. We don't. Any closing remarks from my group here? Thank you all for joining me. Hopefully the folks watching got some good information.
I would like to say that if you can see my name and my handle, that's my Instagram handle. Feel free if you have any questions. Please don't hesitate. I'll be more than be honest with you. I'm really direct. So, and I encourage you to take the next step. Don't be afraid. I was afraid. I got over my fear and I did it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys, and good luck to all our incoming WSET Level 3 students. I hope to see you in my class.
Yay.
Hey, thank you, Stacy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Stacy.